Transition Awareness Breathing. Feeling grounded for both children and parents is essential for healthy living and learning. Join Eartha Powell on this series for tips and tools for creating a harmonious environment for learning. Transition Awareness Breathing will help you and your child find an individualized path to tackle change, promote lifelong learning, and discover new approaches to calmness.
Before we get started, I have a few questions, something to kind of warm us up, like an icebreaker. Imagine you are at your favorite place. There's other people there, social distancing, of course, and someone just happens to mention, for whatever reason, I was really in a hurry to get here. I didn't have time to turn my car off. I just got in my car, got here, and got out, and I just left my car running. What would your response be? And that person continues to share. And then they tell you, when I leave here, I'm going to a couple of other stops. I have to run some errands. When I go home, I leave my car on all night long. I just let it run. I leave the garage door open, and when I go to sleep, when I wake up, I just leave it on. I'm just ready to go all the time. What would your response be? Or how about someone else who might mention you're at the same place? I leave my lights on at my house all night long. When I'm there, when I'm not there, when I'm awake, when I go to bed, I just leave them on. I don't have time to turn off all the lights. I just let it stay on. What would your response be? What would you think? Would you say anything? Those may be ice-breaking questions in our little scenario exercise right now. But I suggest, in my humble opinion, that is exactly how many of us are living our lives. We are running on a tank of gas. We're letting our engines continue to run. Our lights are always on. Welcome again to Transition Awareness Breathing Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. We are going to talk about the benefits of mindfulness and imagery. And we're going to kind of intersperse the results of mindfulness and imagery. But before I continue, I would like to thank Web Talk Radio for allowing me to have a platform to bring Transition Awareness Breathing Podcast to you. And thank you to my producers, Mary Lou and Sam, for making Transition Awareness Breathing Podcast available to you wherever you're at, in your car, in your home, in your place of exercise. Now, let's get started. Let's continue. So, how did I get this topic in my brain? Where am I? That's a good question. Because that's part of what mindfulness is asking yourself, is being curious and asking the question, where am I? Not the type of where am I like I'm lost, wandering around the parking lot trying to find my car. Of course, I've done that too. But we're not talking about that kind of where am I. It's a different type of question. It's asking, where am I at in the present state of mind, like right now? So in my class, that I teach a couple of times a week with my little students, my elementary students. We're talking about this. And it's so cool because they are so receptive. And how I begin to approach this topic with my little students is we begin to talk about imagery. And that's what we're going to use today. We're going to use imagery. And that's what I used when I opened up our session today. Imagine. Why do we use imagery? Because it gets us in a frame of mind. That's one. It paints a picture for us so that we can kind of relate to. We can have a picture or an experience in our mind, and then we begin to visit the emotions, the sensations of that experience. Or if we have an image in our mind, we can a little bit more easily transition to how is that making me feel. When we visit the emotion that we are experiencing with that imagery exercise, then we can address that emotion, those feelings, those sensations in a mindful way. For example, what was your response when I mentioned the scenario of someone leaving their car on all the time so that they can save time because they're in a rush? What went through your mind? Let's visit that part. And what went through your mind when I mentioned the person who leaves their lights on? How did that make you respond? How did that make you feel? Now, just to go a little bit deeper with these two scenarios, it's a little bit of imagery, it's a little bit of parable, but let me go forward, okay? So if we leave our car on all the time, what would be the results? Yeah, the first thing that would probably happen is the car would run out of gas. Maybe that would be the first thing. Also, think about the wear and tear of that engine. It is constantly in an idle position. The motor, the electricity, it is constantly working. Over time, those parts will wear down and they will not be as efficient as they should be. The cost of bringing that vehicle back into a functioning position, operational position, will cost a little bit of money. If we run out of gas, we have to go get the gas. We may have to call a friend or a tow truck to get the gas into the car. If the engine is running a long time, it means the oil and all the lubricants of that car is going to continue to wear on the engine, in which decreases the performance of the engine. If we decide to leave our lights on all the time, every light in the house, every light in your apartment, every light, just light it up, what would happen? Well, the first thing that will come to maybe my mind is the electricity bill. The electricity bill would be out of the world. The other thing is, lights would burn out. We'd have to replace lights. Different circuits would get pretty warm, and they would cause a safety hazard. Now, let's bring mindfulness. Let's bring the topic of mindfulness. The paying attention to the now. How are we living our lives? Are we always running? Is our engine always on? Are we not turning off and letting ourselves to rest? I don't have time. I don't have time. We are in a situation, we don't have time. We have to go to work. We have to take care of family. I don't have time. We have other things. We have other projects that's on our list. I'm going to have meetings in the evenings. I don't have time. And where do I have a moment? I don't have time to change my lifestyle. I don't have time. I just pick up whatever I can that's fast. Well, guess what? Our economic system is targeting people who don't have time. And they are very adaptable and very accommodating for those of us who don't have time. They make food that's very convenient. They make entertainment very convenient, easy, quick. They make communication very, very convenient. All the apps, you don't have to dial anything, just load it on the app because we don't have time. And so I parallel those kind of situations, that situation with the car and the lights. We're constantly on. Visiting the now, making the now, blocking off a time to be curious and to look around and be aware of how our body systems are responding to our not being able to have time. With mindfulness, there are all kinds of different recommendations of how long and you should practice mindfulness, but we all must start somewhere. So even if we start with 5 minutes, I don't have time. 1 minute. What amount of time can you spare? 5 seconds? A minute? A breath? Knowing what the benefits are of turning our engines down to rest, to turning off some of our lights, and taking a breath and paying attention to our breath, paying attention to the sensations and being aware of what we're eating and how we're eating. If we all are taking in a moment to eat, we can eat mindfully. If we're all involved in walking to the next meeting, we can walk mindfully. So we can get that moment somewhere within our 24-hour period. The benefits of mindfulness helps bring balance into ourselves. It helps bring acceptance. It improves sleep. And in many cases, there are a lot of resources and studies that supports how mindfulness, relaxation, breathing, awareness, decreases stress, decreases anxiety, helps with pain control, perception of pain. It helps with decreasing certain chronic illnesses, such as, for example, hypertension. The benefits. Well, because many of those conditions are triggered because we're on, because we're not making time. And so the body is stressed, is giving symptoms that it needs. It needs some time to be calm, to be resting. Just like when in the scenario of the car and the lights, if something is on all the time, there are going to be symptoms, there's going to be signs that will cause that machine or that utility not to be safe. It will wear out. It will not last as long as it's intended to be. And so with imagery, in my students this week, I said, imagine the best ever vacation. And when they got that in their minds, I asked them to be curious and explore how did they feel at the best ever vacation. And I invite you to explore the best ever vacation. Imagine the sensations, the smells, the taste. For a moment, take yourself there. And keep that moment. That's your treasure. Because that is your mindfulness time to recharge, to re-energize. And when you're at your imagine the best ever vacation moment, take a breath. Take a breath and imagine at that moment you're reminiscing, you're experiencing, and you're bringing yourself to calm. So in practicing mindfulness, think of it as the total opposite of our everyday default mode. In our everyday default mode, we're spending large chunks of our time functioning out of habit or routine. And some of us get a little bit uncomfortable when we're functioning outside of a habit or outside of routine because it's been efficient for us. But this is taking a experience using imagery that's comfortable and that is positive and beginning there and taking a moment to use just a mindfulness breath and blowing it away and being positive in those few moments that you're practicing your mindfulness. No judgment. No judgments. As we bring our session to a close in a few moments, I would just like to share an experience that I recently had. Where I live, we had a pretty aggressive snowstorm, and many of the trees and plants here, they're not used to that snow. You know, when I lived up north in the northern cities, you know, those trees and bushes and things like that, you know, they're pretty robust. But where I live at now, you know, palm trees are not used to snow, sago palms. So there's a sago palm. And many people where I live, they have sago palms. Well, the ferns of the palms are pretty brown, and it looks like that main trunk of those palms are pretty brown and dried and dead. But this week, what I saw were sprouts of baby sago palms. And I thought it was such a beautiful vision because that main trunk represented to me the past. And just because the past has has had to be trimmed off. The future was coming up. But it was the now that I experienced, the beauty of the now, seeing both of those two elements together was so amazing to me. That there is hope, that no matter what the winter may bring, what winter season we may have, that through that there is new growth, something that we're learning, something that is new. I invite you and I encourage you to bring yourself to calmness. Look at the now and find something in your world that you can see the hope out of all the winter storms, out of all the sadness. Find the now, the green, the new, the future, and nurture that. Until next time, I want to thank you for joining me today in Transition Awareness Breathing Podcast. Subscribe to my station. I would love to see a lot of my listeners subscribed, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Have a great day.
Be sure and pick up a copy of Eartha's new book, Tab Mindfulness, Awareness and Coloring Activities in a Pandemic World. It's not just an ordinary coloring book. It features 23 illustrations to stimulate thought, relaxation, and creativity for anyone between the ages of 4 and 94. Increase your positive self-talk energy. Unlock new creative paths. Transform your time once or twice a week to create beautiful art while strengthening confidence, building positive self-talk, and sensitize self-awareness. Tab Mindfulness, Awareness and Coloring Activities in a Pandemic World. It's available now at Amazon.com.